Hello and welcome to Run It Back on the Raptors Republic Network. I'm Zulfi, joined by Kyle Ramnarine and Coty Wiles. And I know it's been a hot minute, but we're getting very, very close to the start of basketball coming back into our lives. The preseason is in 2 weeks. The first games of the NBA regular season are on October 22nd. It's a very exciting time, and we thought, why not kind of ease you into it by talking about this Raptors roster, which for the most part is ironed out. I think there's some end of bench spots that we can kind of figure out and see what happens. But until then, we wanted to kind of go over some of our expectations for the players, see what we think, maybe debate a little. Who knows how excited we get talking about this? I'm sure Kyle will have some crazy takes about Bruce Brown, but we'll see when that happens. But in the meantime, we're going to go through the rosters, and what better place to start than the face of the franchise, number one, Scottie Barnes. I think, Coty, you're the kind of the point man on this conversation.
Yeah, well, I'm doing great, Zulfi. It's glad to be back. Season is right around the corner, and yeah, Scottie Barnes. Hey, it's they've pivoted right to Scottie. He is everything that this franchise has been hoped for, and they're hoping more out of him.
Mm.
My question to you guys is, it's kind of hard to project where this Raptors team is going to finish next season because I think a lot of it hinges on Scottie. And it's, can he take another jump? Like, I do you guys think he can reach an all NBA level? I'm not sure if that's a bit of a too high expectation for him this next season, but I mean, he keeps proving people wrong. So why not? I'll turn it to you, Kyle. Do you think he's an all NBA player next year?
I honestly think he can be, to be honest. I think it comes down to again how he plays, but also how much team success there is. But I think it's limited to, I would say, the third team All NBA, because if we think forwards right now, there are a lot of forwards who I would put above him. But I feel like if he can jump his points up to maybe 20 to 23, and if the team does see success, I can easily see him being on third team. It's just how much is the NBA willing to respect this man's name, and how well is the team going to do?
I mean, yeah, it really is, because if he plays well, the Raptors are going to be in the playoffs probably. Like, if he's going to be at an All NBA level, I'd be shocked if Toronto wasn't in the playoffs. Like Zulfi, I have written down here the numbers with Sabonis. Sabonis is probably, I mean, the worst player on the third All NBA team, which is like, not it's not really a slight at all.
No.
And Scottie's numbers are not quite there, at least last season. So, I mean, what are your thoughts? I mean, just overall thoughts of the Raptors. Do you think where do you project them to be?
Yeah, like we can have the conversation about the greater Raptors as a whole and their win totals. I think to be quite honest, it's a crapshoot trying to guess what the Raptors are going to be this season. But in terms of Scottie specifically, I guess my not so boldish take here is that I don't think all NBA as the next check mark for him is a fair expectation. Not that he can't do it, not that he doesn't have the talent. The reason why, and you guys kind of alluded to it, is I think it's very stacked and it's very hard given his team kind of aspect of it. Because how likely is it the Raptors are going to be winning enough games? You said it, Coty. If they're in the playoffs, he'll be in the conversation. But even then, think about this. You said it. Sabonis was on the third team. LeBron James was on the third team last year. That's
Steph
saying
Curry.
something. Yeah, Steph Curry. Paolo Banchero wasn't on the All NBA team. A guy like Julius Randle and Jaylen Brown. Julius Randle has been there before. Jaylen Brown should probably be an All NBA player, if we're being honest. And think about a guy out west who's going to be a sophomore next season, in Victor Wembanyama. These are guys Scottie's going to be competing against, and if he's not putting his team into the ultimate top 4 or 5 seeds, I don't think it's really going to be much of a case. And that's not a slight against Scottie. It's just there's so many players and it's so stacked that I think it's not a fair bar to kind of say he has to immediately, after having this all-star season, jump into this conversation of top 15 players. And the reason why I also say this is because I think there's a much easier bar to kind of define him by. Yes, he was an all-star last year, but if we remember, he was an injury reserve. How about we start with just being an outright all-star? Getting into the game as is. I know voting and stuff matters, and sometimes people might even say he got slighted last season, but let's start there. Because that doesn't matter as much about winning. Yes, winning will be taken into account by some and coaches and whatnot, but at least then it's more of an individual thing, and you can kind of see the type of player he is and the jump he's taking. If we set this all NBA bar right away, which again, lofty expectations is good to have, it's not really a bad thing. I just don't necessarily think it's fair considering the kind of landscape of the NBA, and you're really asking him to make this monumental jump that I don't think is set up for proper expectations, in my opinion. I don't know what you guys think.
I think that's fair. I think let me dream. Can I dream? What are you
Yeah,
gonna be
absolutely.
so right? Why are you gonna be so rational? I don't like it, but I think what you're saying is fair. It would be very unfair to expect him to do that,
Mhm,
but I mean, I don't think it's out of the possibility that he does do that, is what I'm trying to say. I
for
wouldn't
sure.
say it's like locked in, but I mean, even if he is just an all-star, Kyle, like, where do you see the Raptors finishing?
Well, honestly, it's so hard because if we're fully healthy, I can see our team around the 5 to 6 seed. I think that's where they'll probably land fully healthy. But with Scotty when it comes to all NBA, like Zulfi just like fully opened my eyes. Like LeBron was on third team last year, so it's gonna be extremely hard for this man to even get on the all NBA team. But I could totally see him getting the numbers around there as long as the team produces and everything's flowing well. But this is kind of like the perfect scenario type deal. But honestly, I don't think it's a bad prediction. I just think the team and him just gotta live up to it.
Yeah, I'll jump in quick and Coty and saying, please dream, like dream and expect a way because Scotty has shown throughout his career that he exceeds expectations. He came into the NBA as a rookie, as a quote unquote project, and he was immediately rookie of the year. And then he takes this all-star leap. Like by all means, dream about it. I just want to make sure that as a general fan base, we don't come out of this season quote unquote disappointed
Mhm.
or feel like he fell short because he wasn't an all NBA player. You're asking him to be a top 15 player in the NBA if you're expecting that of him, and that is a lot. And I don't think that's necessarily fair. But by all means, he can do this and make me look wrong, and I will be happy that I'm wrong about this.
Nah, rational as always. I think what you said is I think what you said is great. We were expecting a big jump from him, and somebody who made a jump when he came to the Raptors last year was RJ Barrett. And Kyle, I know that's your guy, so give us the Maple Mamba spiel.
So ever since like RJ's come to Toronto last year and I've seen how well he's been playing, I've been really high on him. And then with the Olympics, he's been playing well over there. And so when he came to Toronto last year, he was averaging 21.8 points. So hopefully my expectations is he can make a little bump in scoring to around 23 to 25 points per game. I don't think that's too unreasonable, but those are my expectations. The also improvements I would want to see from him is he does get a little bit of tunnel vision at points. I hope he improves his playmaking just a little bit. And he was shooting 62% from the line in Toronto. For some reason, it dropped when he came from New York. So hopefully he can just fix up on that. But my question to you guys is, I think he could take the All-Star leap this season. Do you guys think he can?
Cody, what do you think?
Rational Zulfi. Oh, okay,
Oh
okay.
yeah, we're both
Maybe
so
I'll dream.
Canadian. We're just like, okay, you go ahead. No, Cody, you go for
I'll dream first, and then you can poop all over it once again. No, it's tough because I think if he's gonna make an all-star jump, the Raptors, I mean, it's already hard enough to see two all-stars on the same team. You'd be saying that RJ Barrett is either one gonna be better than Scottie Barnes, or two, the Raptors are gonna be so good that it's gonna be justified to have two all-stars on the roster. I love RJ Barrett. He improved in literally every aspect of his game once he came to Toronto, except like you mentioned, free throw shooting, which was like the weirdest thing. Like it's such an anomaly. Like I don't even know. There's really no rhyme or reason for it. It was just kind of just wasn't falling for
Mhm.
whatever reason. It was just one of those things. But I mean, the way he just attacks is amazing. I mean, have him working on the offside with Scotty and IQ on the other. It's great when he's able to get downhill, being continue to shoot the three, uh, like he did when he got to Toronto. That's massive, and just I think the biggest thing for him would just be on the other side of the floor. The Raptors need him to be uh, a serviceable slash plus defender if he could. Uh, that's the Raptors defense was terrible last year. They need him to step up defensively as much as the offense has been there. They need him on the other end of the floor.
Yeah, I'm with you, Cody, in terms of like what my expectations of RJ are. Like one, just keep doing what you were doing when you came to Toronto. Be that efficient, like scorer who can kind of work outside in. Again, he was just making good decisions for the most part. Very little of that tunnel vision as much as he had it in New York. But in terms of Kyle's question about like can he be an all-star, I'll cheat and say that I think he's gonna be a non-all-star all-star. And by what that I mean is like Think of Mike Conley. Think of CJ McCollum back in his prime with Portland. These are guys you knew were all-star caliber players, but it's just so hard with kind of the depth at guard position in the West that they didn't make it those years. Even DeMar DeRozan out West with San Antonio or whatnot. Like, you know he's an all-star if he's in the East, but in the West it's just so difficult. But like I think RJ Barrett, if he's putting up these numbers, and like realistically, we don't think the Raptors are going to be like that Atlanta Hawks team back in the day that was so good that had like 4 All-Stars. And remember the whole team won like Player of the Week once. That was ridiculous. But basically, the Raptors aren't going to be that Hawks team where they're winning like 60 games, so they're not going to get multiple All-Stars. At least I don't think. Hopefully, I'm wrong. So I don't think he'll be an all-star, but he'll have all-star caliber numbers, in my opinion, if he can keep this up. Again, the efficiency is the biggest thing. If he's not tunnel vision RJ, which he showed in Toronto, he doesn't need to be because Darko empowers him to kind of move the ball more, operate more in the offense, not kind of have to work around other guys as much as he did with Julius Randle and Jalen Brunson. I'm pretty high on RJ Barrett for this season. My take was that I think he's going to lead the team in scoring. Scottie's going to have a lot of responsibilities. I think he'll still be a 20-point per game scorer. But I think RJ Barrett can be that lead scorer because he scores in bunches. We've seen that. He can really take over games, and he fits around Immanuel Quickley and Scottie Barnes so well that his opportunities come a lot easier, I think, than they did in New York. So I think he can really kind of take on that scoring load most nights. So I'm pretty high on it. I don't think that'll make him an all-star, unfortunately, but I think he has what it takes to be a really high-volume scorer in the NBA.
Mm-hmm. And I want to also follow up, like, do you guys think 25 points per game is realistic, or do you think he has to kind of share the ball more and that's a little bit out of his range for this season?
25 is a lot, man.
Yeah,
it is.
It's a lot, especially just given the context of this Raptors team.
Mm-hmm.
Especially, like, we'll get to Immanuel Quickley in a second, but I think a lot of us are expecting and wanting Immanuel Quickley to be just chucking up more shots, man, and just be letting it fly and doing more of his thing. So it's going to be interesting to see like the usage percentage with BBQ, and maybe we'll see who the fifth starter is going to be, if that's Gradey Dick, where he really slots in and if he makes a jump. It's going to be interesting to see how it all shakes out and how everybody synergizes, because I mean, this is the group going forward. So it's going to be interesting to see who takes the jump. But I mean, RJ Barrett has been proving people wrong, just like Scottie has. So, yeah. I mean, you can't put anything past him.
Yeah, like, honestly, it could be as simple as like RJ kind of keeps his efficiency up from 3, but is chucking up like 2 more threes a game, and you can very easily see him getting close to this number. But it's so like marginal with him. Like, he averaged just over 21 points a game last season. 4 more points, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. But like Cody's point, like, where is that taking away from, right? Is that a shot from Scottie? Is that a shot away from Immanuel Quickley? Or is it a shot away from Bruce Brown, which, hell, I wouldn't be that mad about. But like, you don't know where he's taking these shots away from, right? So it'll be interesting. But like, to your point, and I'm glad you brought it up, Coty, was like Immanuel Quickley. That's the next person that we're going to be talking about here. And there are expectations for him now. That's just the truth, because he got paid like, quote unquote, an all-star. He got paid to at the very least be the franchise point guard for this team. So like, I have a couple things I kind of want to see from him this year, and I don't want to call them check boxes, but the starting thing is I kind of expect him to be a top 6 to 8 point guard in the East. And the reason why I say that is because look at the Eastern Conference landscape, and if he's a top 6 to 8 point guard, like a true floor general, that should put the Raptors in around the mix where you expect them playing maybe a bit higher. And that's not that easy to actually do if you think about it. Like, in the East, when you look at, there's a lot of pretty good point guards. You have Drew Holiday, Damian Lillard, Tyrese Maxey, Darius Garland, Trae Young. Even if you go down the list, LaMelo Ball, Cade Cunningham, these are top quality guards. Whether the teams have been successful or not is a different question, but he should aspire to be within that mix. I don't want to say all-star, because again, that can be hard. The backcourt can be really dicey in the East. Again, a guy like Damian Lillard, who has the prestige and honor of doing this for years, is probably going to get lots of votes, so that skews things. So I don't want to go there, but like, when you just look at him as a player, I want people to think of him as one of the top 6 to 8 point guards in the East. And one of the things I want to see from him and keep up is that he had a career high assist production with the Raptors. I want him to bump that up to around 8 assists a game. Again, very like subjective number I came up with, but I think that's a solid number, because that would, if he had 8 assists last year, that'd be top 10 in the NBA. And I think Immanuel Quickley should strive to be one of the best passers in this league. The Raptors need that. They need a floor general to kind of take some of those duties off Scottie Barnes. We've seen a lot of Scottie plus bench units. We haven't seen anyone else plus bench units. They tried it a bit with Immanuel Quickley last year. Maybe we can see more of that if he can be that true floor general. And something I really, really want to see from Quickley bring back this year is the mid-range floater. that just is it just me, but I felt like that kind of disappeared in Toronto a little bit. Versus in New York, that was one of his strongest skill sets. And in the mid range, his numbers tailed off. Like in the short mid and long mid in New York, he was 51% at 40. In Toronto, he was 35 and 33% from the two mid range spots. Like it really tailed off. He was still pretty good at the rim in Toronto. Like again, it was actually better. He's 57% in New York versus 70% in Toronto at the rim. Again, different sample sizes, but it was either the rim or 3-point line. That mid-range game escaped him, and we all know when it comes to the playoffs, when it comes to tight defenses, that can really open things up. And he has that in his game. He has a floater, so I want to see Quickley bring that back. But to ask you guys a question to kind of see where your expectations are, I want to go back to the first point. Do you think Immanuel Quickley, or how high are you on Immanuel Quickley's chances of being a top 6 to 8 point guard in the East? Kyle, what do you think?
If we're talking just the East alone, I think honestly he does have a good chance because last year we kind of saw what he can really do when it comes to a fully healthy Raptor squad. He helped improve the spacing, he helped improve the playmaking. So I generally don't think your take is out there, especially like you said, if he only averages 8 assists a game, that would have been top 10 last year. So I think it's definitely in the realm of possibility, especially like his bread and butter last year was that pick and roll with Jakob Poeltl. So as long as everything starts flowing right and he keeps up that game, I think he could do. Honestly, I don't think it's that crazy of a take.
Cody, what do you think?
I mean, the Raptors are paying him to be that, and
that's the thing too, right?
Yeah.
So they're expecting it. I mean, the Raptors and Masai Ujiri have been pretty solid overall in the decisions they make in general. Just, I want to, S pointed it out on Twitter the other day. I just want to see him shoot the ball more. He shot 42% on catch and shoot threes in Toronto, and he shot 38% on pull-up three attempts. 4 game for the pull-ups and 3 for the catch and shoot. Can we bump those up to a little bit more? He's one of the best shooters on the planet.
Yeah.
Let's bump that up, because I think if he wants to take the next level in the career, he needs to be higher than 32nd in 3-point attempts in the league. We need to see him really get the volume up and still maintain the efficiency. And Kyle, you kind of alluded to it. I'm excited to see more of him in the pick and roll. That's something that's been talked about since he got here with Jakob Poeltl, who we can get into as well. That's big. If they can continue to pair well, they played pretty well together. So it's a couple of development checks, like you were kind of mentioning, Zulfi. You have a couple of things you're looking at, kind of similar. Just the 3-point volume, how he keeps looking at pick and roll. And yeah, I'm surprised you brought up the at-rim numbers and they were that good. I feel like watching...
Yeah, it doesn't feel like it.
Yeah.
I feel like watching it was not as crisp as it should have been. Maybe, like you said, adding back that mid-range game and operating the paint a little bit more. I think that also comes naturally as you get more comfortable in the pick and roll. It was a new situation, so hopefully that's something that they're working on, is to be able to get back to the middle of the floor a lot more using that pick and roll with Jakob, and hopefully that just opens up more opportunities for him to get the mid-range floater, and if that gets going, then it opens up more opportunities for him to get to the rim. So that is, Immanuel Quickley's big for this Raptors season. If he's playing at a really good level, then I don't know. See, that's what makes this team so hard to project, because the top guys at the team, BBQ,
Yeah.
they could all make jumps, they could all stay stagnant, or like, I mean, God forbid, they could get worse.
Yeah.
So it's, we'll see. But I mean, all three of them have their own questions, their own expectations. So it's gonna be fun. Even though the Raptors might not be doing a ton of winning, it's gonna be really interesting to see how these guys look with a full season together.
Yeah, I think you're right. And like, it's interesting that you were more focused on Immanuel Quickley's kind of like scoring production, and you talked about it, just a couple more threes a game. And I think that it just speaks to a larger conversation about, like, now that he's gotten paid, now that you know he's gonna be the face of the franchise, the diversity and expectations for him are like kind of rampant, because like, again, part of you wants to see him be that floor general, but part of you knows he's an elite scorer and can kind of take more of that load. And when you look at top point guards in the NBA today, guys like Tyrese Halliburton, Luka Doncic, like players like them, Steph Curry, even like score first guys who can also facilitate really well. I wrote about it last year too. That's kind of how you have to be a point guard in today's NBA. And Immanuel Quickley will have to show more of that he can be a scoring threat, especially with his efficiency from the 3-point line. But like, I think it's going to be like tough to kind of iron out what you really expect of him because everyone's going to have it a little different. Like some people are going to want to see him score more. Some people are going to want to see an old school, like traditional, put the ball on the floor, pass it, play make. But that's just the reality of being a top point guard in the NBA today. You have to do a little bit of everything. It's why it's arguably the hardest position on the floor. So it'll be interesting to see. And like you said, Coty, like how these guys make these leaps or, again, God forbid, not make leaps is going to change the entire complexion of this team. So we'll see. We have to see what they kind of develop with when it comes to it. But somebody who we kind of know what to expect from and has been steady this whole time and consistent, and we don't really have to kind of question too much about, is their big man, Jakob Poeltl, who should be starting at center here. And I believe, Coty, you got point on this one.
Yeah, Jakob Poeltl, center. They signed him 3 more years at 19 and a half, third year with a player option. I'll get to my question in a minute. I just want to point out some numbers and one of things I'm looking at for Poeltl this season. So I kind of mentioned that he's been good with Quickley. They had a plus 6.5 net rating, 432 minutes played. That was the best 2-man lineup with minimum 400 minutes played. So want to continue to see that get better as they have more time together. They really didn't have that much time to really click and get going. So now that Jakob's back to being healthy, and they'll have this off-season in camp to be working together. So looking for that. I also want to see are Jakob and Scottie. Scottie's the face, right? Is this going to be the long-term fit? Is this maybe not long-term just because of Poeltl's age in general, but is this what's best for Scottie to have Poeltl with him? They had a minus 1.6 net rating together over a 920 minute span, so obviously a bigger sample than the Quickley and Poeltl, but that was only the 12th best 2-man lineup, minimum of 600 minutes. And if you knock that down more, they're even farther down. So I guess the question is, what do you guys think of Scottie's fit alongside Poeltl and just overall Poeltl's impact? I don't think they should be like selling him or anything because I do think he's good for the Raptors right now, but it feels like it's a bit clunky to some degree and they don't really have a permanent answer at the center. So Zulfi just lay it on me. Be rational.
Yeah, I was right about to say you're gonna call me rational in a second. I'm gonna hate it.
One more time.
But like, I think that's a very good question to ask because it is something they need to consider. Like, does this fit make sense? And I like using examples around the NBA to kind of like think about it as well and put it into perspective. I asked the same question about the Cleveland Cavaliers with Jared Allen and Evan Mobley, Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell. They're a really good team at times. They can look elite, but come playoff times or even come stretch of the season, they clunk, they overlap, and I don't think it necessarily works out. And that's the kind of questions they should be asking as well. It's like, does this fit kind of optimize us? And I think at times with Scottie and Jakob, we've seen that. But the biggest caveat there is they obviously are a vacuum and they suck up a lot of space, but they haven't really had people to space things out around them consistently. And now you add in a guy like Immanuel Quickley who can be a pretty good shooter and space things out. You have RJ Barrett, who was better from 3 when he was with the Raptors. What can that do? And then, like, this is why a lot of people partially want to see a Gradey Dick in the starting lineup, is because that's another floor spacer. He can really kind of put some of that space between them and the basket and him. And, like, what does this team look like with a bunch of shooters complementing the two of them? We haven't really seen that, at least on a consistent basis, and that's why I don't want to write it off yet. And I'm not saying that's what you're saying either, Coty, but, like, when we see what this complement of players looks like with spacing, with shooters around the two of them, because, like, Scottie is that facilitator guy, but don't get me wrong, Jakob is a pretty solid passer too, especially out of the high post area. He can do some good and creative stuff. They've used him like that as well. So, like, really, both these guys can work and get people open shots. So once we see a bit of that, I think I'll be more comfortable having like I guess not an opinion, but like a take on this. But I think you're right to ask the question, because if we see it and it doesn't work, then you really have to ask yourself is like, does Jakob being here limit Scottie's potential or at least his development in some way? And I think that's a very valid question to start thinking about now, because to your point, we don't have a backup option right now. If we do get rid of Jakob, like, who's going to be our center? Is Scottie's development worth it though? Is it not? Are you risking too much? Like, all these questions are going to kind of domino after that.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. I'm not advocating to get rid of him or trade him. I know there was like people wanting to trade him this offseason, and it's like, I don't know, because he has the best defensive rating on the team. I was just talking offensive fit, but Kyle, if we look on the defensive side of things, he's providing. He's a solid defender league wide at the center position. Maybe he doesn't have a bunch of verticality, but he just takes up space down there. And yeah, like I said, best defensive rating on the team. So, I mean, what do you think of the fit offensively? And then yeah, one of the best defenders on the team, which is something the Raptors very much need.
I think defensively he's critical for the team, right? Like when he was injured for that little stretch, we were running what was it, Ochai at center because he was the biggest guy on the team. So he is needed for this team. Like this team had tough times grabbing offensive and defensive rebounds. So right now, I think for me it's very situational because right now he's what the Raptors need. Like he's a good fit. He works with IQ really well, that pick and roll. But if we were to see more success as a team going down in the playoffs, for me, I'm a guy that when you need a center, especially if you're trying to contend, you're trying to win in the playoffs, you need a center that can help space the floor, not only can play defense. Because if you look at all these championship teams, right, their centers are very versatile. So again, I think he's what we need right now. But going down the line as the team gets better and we build more chemistry and we want to contend, I feel like we're gonna have to figure out where does Jakob really fit on this team. I'm not saying trade him right now, but I think it comes down the line. Down the line, we have to reconsider.
I do have to say, how many of these problems would be solved if Christian Koloko was still on this team? I'm just saying, like, how much easier would this be? Because, like, you're talking about Kyle, a guy who can space the floor a little bit, who's still a versatile big, rebound, kind of be a presence in the paint. Not saying Koloko was a generational piece or changing anything, but he was kind of showing the makings of that. And those players are hard to come around. If you're talking about those guys at the top of the NBA, like, there's not a Nikola Jokic, Joel Embiid around. Even Kristaps Porzingis with the Celtics. Like, those guys aren't, like, there's only so many of them. And the Raptors, not saying they necessarily had that, but if he was there at the backup center, this conversation would be so different. We wouldn't be so fixated on the Jakob fit, long-term, short-term, whatever the case. Yeah. So I just think, like, God, I miss him. We need an option there as a backup to kind of make this easier.
It still could happen with Koloko coming back. Even if he doesn't come back to the Raptors, just to see him back would be fantastic. Sure. It'd be just a great story in general. But I mean, everybody in the NBA wants a rim protecting center who can pick and roll and then pop out and hit the three. Everybody wants that. And they're hard to come by, like you said. So we'll see. Jakob is fine for now. Just a bit of a clunky fit offensively, but there's value there. With the pick and roll, with IQ, they were positive together. It's just the Scottie specifically with the Jakob is maybe not the best, but that could be ironed out with some shooting around them. Scottie took a jump shooting wise again. Could see him do that, even take an even bigger jump this next season. So just something I was looking around and I found. So we're interested to see on Poeltl. But next up, I mean, we've talked about four starters who we think are locked in. I think we all agree who the fifth should be. Gradey Dick, Kyle. I mean, what do you, Mr. Dick?
Give us your dick talk, Kyle.
So when it comes to Gradey, but when it comes to Gradey,
you're about to say the great dick, weren't you?
I should say, like, I'm not putting too many expectations on him because it's his second year. I naturally expect his offense to grow and evolve like he was doing last year with the P90X and everything. For me, mainly, I think his defense is what I have my expectations set on. Off ball, he's great. He's got the rotations down. He's playing his passing lanes. But I think on ball, he has the height and wingspan to be a great defender. So hopefully from this season, I'm not putting anything crazy. Maybe he can bump. He was 0.5 for steals per game last year. I think he can bump it up to 1 per game. And I think honestly he can grow into type of a Kyle Korver, Danny Green, JJ Redick. And there's nothing wrong with being one of those 3-and-D guys. Like every team needs that. And I think that's what he can truly be. I don't think he can be like a guy that creates his own shot off the dribble and like creates his own offense, but he can really be a 3-and-D guy. And my question to you guys have been talking about for a little bit is, do you think Gradey can thrive as a starter, or should he be just for the season coming off the bench and then work his way gradually up?
I think you need to at least give him the shot to be a starter to really answer that question, right? But yeah, defensively is the biggest concern if you're starting. He was one of the worst defenders on the team last season, which is like for rookies, not like uncommon. Like I'm not trying to bash him or anything, but that it's definitely a point of emphasis, and we all knew that coming in. we'll see. Part of it could be he's going to be playing more with better players. That's also part is number one. He's going to be spending presumably a lot more time with Scottie and Jakob on the floor, which are some of the better defenders. But that is where you would like. I don't know if he's ever going to be a positive defender, guys. I'm not sure where I'm at on that. If Gradey can just get to neutral and just continue to be a sharpshooter, I'm not sure if he's ever how much offense he's going to create, but there is some passing there. So I think that's about. I think Gradey will be a starter in the future. I don't know how effective he'll be this year, just because the defense might hold him back, and he's just probably going to get picked on and targeted in that lineup. So him and IQ, who we didn't really touch on it, IQ needs to be a bit of a better defender as well. The whole team needs to play better defense.
Yeah, they all just need to be better on defense, other than Scottie and Jakob, really.
Which we talked about it a couple episodes ago. Darko in year one really established the offense. Like the offense got going. That was the main priority. It's hard to do both in one year. So now it seems, I mean, I would hope and would presume that the defense is going to be a bit more of a focus this season. So we'll see. But yeah, Zulfi, I'm interested to hear what you think. Because I struggled to find Gradey to ever be a positive defender, even though he, like you said, Kyle, has the measurements to do so.
Yeah, he's at a great size to be playing against like two guards or like threes, really. But like you're right, Coty. Like a lot of that comes from like your ability to move laterally. How can you kind of get around and read the space and read players? And that isn't a skill that necessarily everyone has at an elite level. And I'm kind of with you on that sense. I don't think he'll be a plus defender. That's really hard to estimate. But my expectation for him, kind of what you guys are saying, is like just not to be a negative. Don't be the guy who's consistently hunted out there like you were last season. Don't be the guy that players kind of game plan to kind of like, this is the weakness we're going to exploit in the lineup when he checks in. And if you can do that on a semi-consistent basis, I think he has enough offensive upside and ability to fit in this lineup with the starters that he should be given that shot. Like you said, Coty, like give him the shot to start the season, because yes, you want to start off on a good note, but the development is still a part of this equation. Like you're still trying to see what you have with players. You're trying to evaluate. You're trying to put them in position to kind of take steps. And part of that is putting them in like adversarial situations and see how they react to it. And that's going to happen early in the season. He's not going to have the excuse of fatigue, of going up and down and all these things. Granted, neither of the players are going to be attacking him, but this is about as fresh as he can be coming off a full offseason in the NBA, kind of understanding what his role is going to be with this team and seeing what that looks like. Offense, I think we all know what he has in terms of like his capabilities. He's shown he can even put the ball on the floor at times. It'll be interesting to see if Darko and this team take advantage of that more. But I think, honestly, for me, all my expectations are on the defensive end. Offense, I know he'll figure out. He has a great understanding of that. Defensively, can you be out there and not get hunted consistently? And that is honestly a big ask for Gradey Dick based on last season, because we didn't really see a lot of that. And if he can do that, again, no one's asking him to be a positive. No one's expecting him to be PJ Tucker locking players down. He just needs to be out there and not get sent back to the bench because he's just a liability. So if he can do that, I think he deserves to have that starting position.
And honestly, I agree with both of you guys. I think like he's not trying to say he's trying to be Kawhi Leonard, but I think he should step up a little bit on defense. This is like his last season was, getting used to the NBA, getting used to like getting shot down. This season should just be working on that defense, just working on not being a pylon. And honestly, I think if he figures that out, he could be one of the best like three type defenders or three type players in the NBA at least. And I think that will maybe give him a good shot at starting. But moving on to the next, who I don't think will have a future on this team, Bruce Brown. My expectations for him aren't the greatest. I kind of expect just a repeat of last season. Give us some minutes, maybe help out with the younger talents. But I generally don't think he wants to be here long term. I think he wants to play somewhere that's contending. I think a contending team could use him, and I feel like we all might share the same ideals. But like, I'll go to Zulfi first, Mr. Rational. Do you think he'll get traded by the deadline?
All right, let me tell you about Davion Mitchell, who's going to be the backup point guard about this team. No, I'm kidding. Look, I don't think there's reason to have expectations for Bruce Brown. If he's here and he's contributing, great. If he's sent off soon enough, then also fine. I think the only expectation Raptors fans should have of Bruce Brown is don't expect to get a lot back in a trade.
Mhm.
Like, really, like, yes, you can leverage the fact that a contender might want him, but now he's a rental. Like, you're going to have, like, him for this season, and they're going to have to figure out what's next for Bruce Brown if any team wants him. So, Raptors, get rid of him for a second-round pick, move on from the situation, and kind of start clear, I think, is the only expectations anyone should have for Bruce Brown. I'm not saying he's a bad player. I'm just saying I don't necessarily understand his fit with this roster. For God's sakes, he's not a point guard. I just don't think, stop using him like he's a point guard. I've seen enough, like, blinders on layups from him. He's not really a facilitator per se. I think he fits really well around really top class players, and the Raptors don't necessarily have that. Yes, you have Scottie Barnes, but he's still developing himself. I wouldn't say he's that Nikola Jokic type of player, even when he was on the Nets with Kevin Durant and all those guys. Like, Scottie's not there yet. So really, if he's not around those guys, I don't think he's nearly as effective. So I don't have expectations for Bruce Brown. I don't know, Coty, if you have a longer take than that, but that's really where I'm at.
It's been talked ad nauseum that he's just better in a better context around him.
Yeah.
And it wasn't very favorable to him. He had a worse defensive rating than Gradey Dick, Kelly Olynyk, of people who played real like actual games, more than like 6 or whatever at the end there. He had the worst on the team. And he has one of the worst net ratings in general. I'd be interested to see what the Raptors are going to get for him. I would assume he'd be traded, Kyle, by the deadline. I'm honestly surprised it didn't happen this offseason. There was a lot of talk if the Raptors were going to opt into the player option. Kind of looking back, probably the right decision, I guess. Instead of just letting him walk for free. It's not really what the Raptors need right now. They don't need another like kind of non-shooter kind of guy. It's just they need spacing, they need defense, and I mean I know Bruce Brown Jr. can be a better defender. Didn't show it during his time in Toronto yet, so we'll see. It's kind of just another piece to this puzzle that doesn't really fit in.
Yeah, Coty, I think you have a good point with Bruce Brown. Like, it's hard to tell, but you're right. He can be a plus defender. We know he can be a contributor. We've seen it on literally a championship caliber team, but we don't really know if the Raptors are in any situation to kind of provide him that environment to be that player. So what does that come down to? I think we're probably going to be, like you said, Kyle and Coty, looking at him being traded around the deadline. I'm just going to go back to my point. Don't have many expectations of a great return for that. Kind of just take what you can get and move on. But you never know. Masai Ujiri has done some crazy stuff in the past. Maybe he can leverage some team situation who is desperate and a contender. So we'll see what happens with him. Somebody who we should have expectations for, in my opinion, and that I am kind of like high on this team is Davion Mitchell, who I think my expectation for him is to unquestionably be the backup point guard. I truly see him as that backup guy, despite what his time in the NBA has been. Coty, you and me are probably going to talk about this when you talk about Jamal Shead, but I don't think he should be fighting with Shead for this role. I think Davion Mitchell should outright earn this role, and if he doesn't, I think that speaks to more of a problem in his development. But I think with the way he is in the NBA, we know he is an elite defender. He's shown that skill. There's tape of him in the NBA locking players up. He just hasn't had the opportunity per se at the NBA level. Again, Tyrese Halliburton was there for some time. You've had De'Aaron Fox, Malik Monk now. That backcourt has been really crowded in terms of ball handlers. So he hasn't really had that role or responsibility. He's been kind of relegated to a 3-and-D role, and Keon Ellis kind of emerged this year for the Sacramento Kings, so he lost out a bit on that. Granted, that says something about him in terms of losing out in some of these battles, but I think he's shown his ability to kind of work around players and there's versatility to that. He's been a very efficient player in terms of operating the ball. I've talked about it when I wrote about him. His assist-to-turnover ratio is one of the best in the NBA. It's pretty high. It's top 30, I believe. So he operates efficiently, but he can also work around like people who have the ball in their hands. He was around Domantas Sabonis and De'Aaron Fox. So he can be around the Scottie Barnes and Immanuel Quickley, who I think have similar styles to those guys, and work around him if he needs to. His efficiency from a three-point line has gone up every year, despite his numbers going down. So I think all of that to say is the signs of like this player that can grow in an expanded role are there. So since he has the NBA level skilled and tape, I expect him to be that guy. I really don't see why he should be fighting with a guy who's a second round pick to be the backup point guard, truthfully. And that's not a slight on Jamal Shead. I think he's great. I just think there's a guy who's been doing it in the NBA for 4 years who just hasn't had the opportunity. So he should really be able to take this and go with it without much trouble. But that's where I'm at. I don't know what you guys think. I guess I'll start with you, Coty, because I know you do have a take on Jamal Shead and you are pretty high on his game. So do you think that this should be Davion's job right away, or do you think there's already a conversation to be had about this being a battle?
I'm not sure if it's a battle. It's just I do have some concerns about Mitchell. Like we all know about the defense, like that he has an NBA skill that gets him on the floor.
Hmm.
It's just his game is a bit more tailor made to be like a two guard. It's just he just to me he feels like an undersized two. His catch and shoot numbers are better than just 3-point shooting in general, like off the dribble. That's gonna be the big thing for me is the shooting. He shot 36% last year, but it was on the least amount of attempts per game he's
Yeah.
taken, only 2.2. The one time he took over 4, he was below league average at only 31%. We'll see. There's room for him to play, which he hasn't quite gotten this much freedom, which we're all assuming he's going to get since his rookie season, where it was his best year in the NBA. So I'm willing to give it a shot. I don't know if him being the actual point guard, like running the second unit, is going to be effective. If you know what I mean. I'm not sure
Yeah.
his actual point guard capabilities. Feels like to me his game is just a lot more tailor made to catch and shoot and defend and be a 3-and-D guy. We'll see how the playmaking comes around. You said at least he's not turning the ball over, like you said, which is a positive for sure. We just need to see more of the playmaking. Career worst in assists last year as well. So just need to see him get back to that rookie year, which honestly the numbers look solid. If the Raptors could get 11.5 points, 4 and assists, a couple boards, and a stock a game from him, while maybe shooting the three a bit better with some more volume, I'm all right with that. It's just I'm not sure if him actually being a point guard.
Yeah. If he put those numbers up for the Raptors this year, like he had in his rookie year, he would be miles ahead of all the options from last year's backup point guard. Can we at least agree on that part? Like no one else as a backup point guard last year for the Raptors. No disrespect to Javon Freeman Liberty, DJ Carden, Bruce Brown. Like none of those guys were even putting up close to those numbers as a point guard for the team. But you're right, Coty. Like you can't dismiss the fact that his numbers and because of his minutes have been slashed because he hasn't been playing as much, and that is I'll say, for lack of a better term, a discredit to him because his numbers are being taken away because other players are being put in those positions instead. I just go back to, like, again, he was at Baylor, he was a point guard there, not crazy assist numbers, he was averaging around 5 a game, but still high, a great assist to turnover ratio. He was moving the ball around, and he's shown at least the collegiate level that he can operate an offense. He's done it sporadically for the Sacramento Kings when he's been put in that position. The jury is out on that for the most part. You're right. But again, like I said, the signs are there that if you give this guy an expanded role, and again, when those signs are there at the NBA level versus the college level, I take it with a bit more like kind of credence to it. But again, Jamal Shead has proven at the collegiate level, like without a doubt, that he is a floor general more than Davion Mitchell has. So I'm high on it. You're right that it's something to kind of monitor. But Kyle, where are you at on this?
I feel like I'm in the middle of a civil war right now. It's like Team Jamal versus Team Davion Mitchell. You know?
I'm not even that much Team Jamal. I just like him. I don't even know when this.
But it's like I'm when I would look at his stats too. It's like I've seen how his minutes kind of were slashed on Sacramento. First year 27, then the next 18, then the next 15. So, like Coty was saying, he's gonna get the freedom on this team, and I do think, honestly, he should be our backup point guard. I think he's proven himself enough when he does have those minutes, when he does have that freedom. Like he can shoot the ball, but when he did have those minutes, he was getting 4.2 assists per game. Like I think he can do it. I think the fundamentals are there for him, and I think with this type of roster, with these type of players we have, and because there's not really that much pressure on him, not a lot of eyes are going to be on Toronto. We're still trial and error. We're still figuring things out. So I feel like when it comes to him, like he will thrive in that backup role. Honestly,
Sorry, go ahead.
No, real quick. Just don't get me wrong. I love Davion. I think I really do think he's gonna make an impact. It's just I have concerns about the point guard label. That's my whole thing. He's gonna soak up minutes at the guard spot for sure. I love him playing. I don't love him like leading the charge of a second unit, which I think is fair. I love him playing alongside the starters. Like even if the first sub in the game is Gradey Dick comes out and Davion comes in, there's 3-point concerns, but I mean, I like him playing alongside Immanuel Quickley, even though they're a bit small. I do like that as a prospect. I just think he's better off ball.
Yeah, like, and you're not the only one like this. Again, Sean Woodley, Locked on Raptors. I think he like basically vehemently denies that Davion Mitchell is anything close to a point guard. And I will say that in the NBA, he has not consistently been a point guard. I can admit that, but that goes back to my point where like the signs show that when you put him into this expanded point guard role, I think he has the ability to thrive. At least that's what I'm banking on and putting my name on. And you are totally fair in saying that like you haven't seen it, so why would you expect that? You can kind of see you've seen him more in a 3-and-D role. But I'm high on it. And the last thing I'll mention is he is in a contract year. Granted, he is a restricted free agent after this season, but he is playing for money. He's playing for a role with the Raptors. I don't see why the Raptors would commit to him. I think the deadline for an extension already passed. Don't quote me on that. But they're obviously going to see what they have in him before even thinking about it. But even for other teams, he is fighting for another contract. Like, he's going to get something, but he can make himself exponentially more money if he has a good year. And I think there's no better opportunity for him than what he's going to have in Toronto to make that happen. But a guy who doesn't have to worry about that, at least for a little bit, is a guy who got his contract this year from the Raptors after they traded for him in Kelly Olynyk, Captain Canada. Coty, what do you think about him this season?
Yeah, the backup center, 2 more years at around 13 per year. 20th worst defensive rating in the entire NBA last season. Players who played at least 40 games. It's interesting because we were just talking about the Jakob Poeltl fit and how, maybe someone who could space the floor a little bit more, maybe somebody who doesn't clog up as much space. Well, Kelly is that. It's just Kelly can't defend, unfortunately. And it's kind of like the most, not really like the extremes with Poeltl and Olynyk, but I'm not sure of the fit. In general, I love Kelly. We all love Kelly. I hate even speaking negatively about him, but I guess what I'm trying to get at with you guys is, do you think he's a little over the hill of being an effective player in the NBA? Is it a little past him? And honestly, is his defense like hurting BBQ when he's on the floor with them? Bit of a two-parter.
Yeah, I'll kind of try to explain it like this. Like, if Jakob Poeltl is a guy who's still like in his prime, doing his thing, like still an effective player all around, has his faults, but is still somebody here. And the other end of the spectrum is a guy like, let's say Thad Young, who where his talent was, he's past it, he's past it, but you put him in spot minutes, you ask him to guard Anthony Davis in the fourth quarter as a center, he'll still kind of make something happen out of nowhere. I'd say Kelly Olynyk is closer to the Thad Young side than he is the Jakob Poeltl side. And that's not crazy to say. He's not there yet, but he's just about there. Like, he's getting damn close. And like, the Olympics were bad for Canada. Again, it was disappointing for the men's team, and the women's. But Canada got beaten out by France. But I don't think, honestly, I don't think anyone came out looking worse from that Olympic run than arguably Jamal Murray, but right behind him, Kelly Olynyk. Kelly Olynyk was awful defensively for Canada. Like, just straight up getting torched left, right, and center. I don't think he looked good. And honestly, I'm sure all Raptors fans agree with me, but you kind of saw that, and then you saw the Raptors have him for 2 years, or at least signed him for that. Like, the confidence level on that contract really diminished. Maybe I'm overreacting, but I really went from being like, this is a good guy who can maybe we saw it last year with the Raptors, that defensively he wasn't great, but he was overexerted because Jakob was hurt. They was asking too much of him. But then you're like, God, do I even with Jakob, am I really wanting to see this guy out there for that much time? Like, I went from being like he can be a backup center to I'd rather see him as a gadget option, to be quite honest. Put him in for specific situations, play around Gradey a little bit, kind of shoot some threes, maybe provide a spark. But like, he's just nothing on defense. Prove me wrong, but how would he at this age and this part of his career? But I'm just like, that's where I'm at on Kelly Olynyk. I expect him to be a gadget player. He's not going to be with his Raptors. He's going to have more of a role because they don't have a backup center. But really, to answer your question, I think he is over the hill for the most part.
Yeah, I agree with you fully. Like, only if him and Jakob could like Dragon Ball Z fuse together and become like one, like get the defense and get.
I don't know if we can do this, but like, yeah. So somehow we'll make it work.
And they could get the shooting and the defense, then we'd win the chip that season if they get fused together. But honestly, I do think like his defense is really gonna hurt Barbecue, especially because I feel like with a fully healthy Raptors team, we will make the playoffs, and that's where Kelly will truly get exposed when it comes to his defense. They will hunt him down because the tempo does slow down in the playoffs too. They're gonna seek out people like Gradey Dick. They're gonna seek out people like Kelly Olynyk. So I feel like, again, it's very situational. Like right now, if the Raptors are kind of just figuring out what they want, Kelly Olynyk is great because he can help stretch the floor. But when we're getting serious about winning and when we get into those playoff games, are we gonna run Kelly as much, because they will look out for him, they will hunt him down, and it's like you don't have a backup center. So yeah, I'm kind of with you. Like, yeah, he can shoot well, like he does shoot the ball well, but I think for me, I prioritize defense a little bit more, especially in the playoffs, and he will hurt the team in the long run. I think so.
I wonder if they'll try him at the 4 a bit more. It's not really something they did as much as I thought they were going to do, like him and Poeltl on the floor at the same time. So maybe not, but yeah, the Olympics, when it in FIBA ball, where it even is better for bigs to be defensive, still didn't have the great showing, but I'm still just getting nightmares of Isaiah Cordinier and Gershon Yabusele. So thanks for bringing that back up, Zulfi. But
I never want to hear the name Cordinier again. Like, granted, the guy was a baller, but also shout out Gershon Yabusele with the 76ers. Got a contract back in the NBA. Good for him.
I mean, Cordinier should be getting a shot at this point based on how he was playing in the Olympics. Crazy. But the player who came over with Olynyk in the trade, Ochai Agbaji, who has his own concerns, and I feel like a lot of people are out on him too. So maybe looking back at this trade, maybe not the best, maybe something we could talk about. But Zulfi, Ochai Agbaji, what do you think of Ochai?
I'm glad you brought up the trade thing, and I'll get into that in a second. But like, you're right, a lot of people are out on him, and after his season with the Raptors, I don't blame them per se. So with saying that, my expectations are relatively low. Quite honestly, they're very low. He should be in some capacity backing up Scottie and RJ and be serviceable in that. I think of him as like a 9th man on this rotation. And besides that, my only other expectation is, hey, shoot 30% from 3, and that is not asking a lot. He's done that a couple times in his career, but with the Raptors last year, he was at 21%, just fell off a cliff. He's never been a great 3-point shooter, but damn sure has been better than 21%. And if he shoots 30% from 3, that's not even his career best 3-point shooting season. That would be like his 3rd best. So again, not asking a lot. And really what this boils down to, and I don't even mean this as a joke, even though it's going to probably sound kind of funny, just be more impactful than Jalen McDaniel was. Like, that's really all I'm asking. Be a 9th man, be a guy who can like not go out there and be the most just Tony Snell impression, like non-existent type of thing. Like, I don't really know like a not mean sounding way to say it, but that's truthfully it. Like, Ochai Agbaji, like, you were a former lottery pick, granted 14th pick, but you have this great athleticism. You can be versatile in multiple roles. We see what's there. It's just, if you can't shoot and you're not like a guy who can be an offensive creator with the ball and do it other ways, I don't really see you offering a lot. You're decent defensively. I wouldn't say you're elite. You have the capabilities to be pretty good. But like, with this team and with everyone else on here, I kind of expect him to be a 9th man. I don't know if your guys' expectations are higher, but like, before I get into my question and talking about this trade, but like, do you guys think that's fair? Am I too low on Agbaji? What do you think, Coty?
His rookie year, he shot 35% from 3 on 3.9 attempts. Yeah, like you mentioned, 21% with the Raptors, and it's not like he's taking crazy hard shots. His 3-point diet is literally just corner threes.
A lot of them were open.
A lot of them. It's, you can't be. I actually think he's pretty solid defensively. I'm not going to lie. I think the Raptors challenged him a little bit to do some POA defense last season, and I ultimately think he was solid. It's just, how much value can you bring when you're net negative offensively? Now it's just the complete opposite of we've been screaming that the Raptors need defense, but they also need shooting, and the defense can't come at the cost of being a nothing burger on offense. So just hitting the threes, I think, is all you can reasonably expect from Ochai. He's done it. He did it in college to some degree, did it in his rookie year. It just has fallen off. I mean, he was under 30% last year. The attempts were down as well. So we'll see.
Kyle, what do you think?
I don't know why Jalen McDaniels is taking strays right now. Like, what's
okay,
going on?
All right.
No, I'm kidding. But I don't think you're being too hard on Ochai. I think, again, he's one of the biggest players on the team. So I think his defense, like, he did show us what he can do. And I feel like shooting 30% from 3 isn't a crazy ask. Like, a lot of the people on the team, you got guys like IQ, Scottie, can help set him up for those open threes. Maybe it was kind of just like being moved to a new team type situation. Now he's more comfortable, building more chemistry with the team. We'll see him flowing more. So yeah, honestly, I think shooting 30% from 3 is reasonable ask. My expectations for him aren't crazy. Like he just got to go out there and knock down shots. That's all he has to do. It's nothing
That
crazy.
shouldn't be an expectation.
Like, yeah.
30%. Like that's
Yeah,
not.
like
You're not
it's
even
very
helping.
low.
Like he's such a negative on offense that teams are just leaving him open and he's missing the shots and it's just messing up the spacing for the rest of the team and he's hurting the team offensively because of it. Like 30% should not be the bar we're aiming for here. Like, can we at least get to league average? Like that's what I'm hoping.
Yeah, but doesn't that just speak to like how bad it was? Like really, because like you're right, 30% is not asking for a lot, but you're asking for 7% better than what he was on Toronto last year, which is like, again, mathematically that is a decent jump. But again, in the grand scheme of things, you're right. It's super low, but like that's like basically me asking Jalen McDaniels to not be terrible. Like you're asking for a lot if you think about it in perspective. Like it's just the bar was set so low by him is my point. Like what he was on Toronto last year kind of tempered everyone's expectations, or at least should have. It did mine. So now, yeah, I'm gonna start a little. But you're right, Coty. League average is also not asking for a lot, and if he does that, he can easily be a great rotation piece for this Raptors team because he has everything else going for him. But you're right, at the end of the day, defense is cool, it's important, it makes a difference, but you got to score points to win basketball games. That is what the NBA is, that is what this game is. So if he can do that, we'll see. But to my question, and you kind of alluded to it, Coty, like if Ochai doesn't work out and then it's kind of like a wasted opportunity, do you think of this as like a negative against this Masai front office era? Do you look at this like this trade was a waste? I have a take on it, but I'm curious what you guys think because I know I've heard some people talk about this.
Go ahead, Kyle.
Okay. So I don't think it would be a waste. I feel like we got Ochai and Kelly out of that trade, so I feel like that was a win for us, especially with the team we have right now. Because I see a lot of upside in Ochai. Like I know he was shooting horribly, but he can be a good rotational piece. And right now, like Otto Porter, he was a great kind of like mentor for the younger guys. But I feel like with this trade, I wouldn't say it's a bad wasted move. I feel like they can generally help the team. So, but if he gets waived, like it's hard to say. But I feel like in the long run, like looking back on things, it was a good move by the front office.
I don't care about the players they gave up. Like Otto Porter Jr. basically retired the moment he left, and Kira Lewis Jr. didn't do anything either. It was fun to watch on 9-5 for a couple of games, but the first round pick is a bit unfortunate, especially when it turned out to be Isaiah Collier. They already brought in, looking back, they brought in 5 rookies, so it's not really that big of a deal. But I mean, just the thought, like you could have used that first for something else, maybe not make the pick, but if you were going to try to get rid of a pick anyways, maybe you could have got in better players. I think Ochai can make it better though. I really think Ochai can be better this season. I think he's the type of guy that would want to be better. I think he knows that's not acceptable from what he was doing from 3, especially when your shot diet is so easy. And so I think it can look better, but as of right now, the asset could have been used on something else.
Fair enough. If you're looking at opportunity cost, I can see a bit of an argument. I'm probably going to come out of this sounding like a Messiah apologist. I don't really care about that. But if you're going to look at a trade or anything to kind of question decision making or something that went wrong for Masai Ujiri, frankly, in my opinion, this isn't the trade to look at. Otto Porter Jr., like you said, Coty, out of the league. He's retired. Kira Lewis, I think he's already been traded out of Utah. And that 29th pick, you're right. Isaiah Collier could have been something. We've seen what happened with other picks in the past with a guy like Walker Kessler missing out on him. The Raptors had the 31st pick. They were 2 picks away. Like there's a world where Isaiah Collier fell to them anyways. Like granted, that's not what happened. That's not the world we live in. But when you're coming to decision making, you were 2 spots off. You got the guy that you supposedly wanted regardless. You have the 29th, 31st pick. How likely was it you were going to keep both anyways? So I don't think the opportunity cost was that high for a flyer. Flyers don't always work out. That's exactly what it is. You traded away practically nothing valuable on your roster with a semi-valuable late first round pick for the opportunity of a 14th overall pick with upside. And granted, it doesn't look like that upside is going to pay off, but I don't think you look at that trade and be like, wow, Masai in this front office really messed up. I've heard conversations of people talking about like this is going to look like a bad thing for Masai looking back at it if it doesn't work out. This isn't going to be a great move. Or like we have to ask like what was the point of that deal? You want to talk about the Jakob Poeltl trade? Go ahead. Talk about what that did and losing that 8th pick and everything that came with that. Whatever. You want to talk about not re-signing Fred VanVleet or trading him or trading Pascal Earlier? Go ahead. This isn't the move to gripe over. I really truly don't see that. Even if Ochai is awful this year, even if you waive him and none of this pans out, we already know Kelly Olynyk probably isn't going to look favorably by the end of this contract. Even with that, I don't think any of this is a slight on Masai's front office. With the team's position they're in and with the way that they're trending, you have to take some flyers and not all of them are going to pay off. You saw what he pulled off with the Sacramento deal and what he gave up to get those guys. And you don't know if that's going to pan out, but again, very favorable trade. In the other side of the spectrum, you have something like this, where he takes a marginal flyer, and hell, it may not pay off. But that's just my take. I feel like people have griped over something like this, and not every trade is going to be great, but really, what are you giving up here? That's my question. Like, can we not complain about something when you're really giving up nothing in return?
Yeah, no, like I said, it was just, you can't quibble over the players that they gave up. And it was just the pick that is kind of unfortunate that had to be included in what it could have been. But looking back, yeah, they brought in 5 rookies, like I said. So it's really, how much more could you really support it just with, say it would have been Isaiah Collier. With Isaiah Collier not coming in, it allows someone like Jakob Poeltl who can now get more time. Who, I mean, Kyle, Walter, like, do you think he's going to be like in the rotation? What do you think about Jakob Poeltl?
So for me, like when it comes to rookies, I don't tend to put a lot of expectations on them just because we don't know what we're gonna get. Like unless they're like a first round or like a first pick in the draft. But when it comes to him, all I want to see is just show off what you were able to do in college. You know, you were a great 3-point shooter. You had the athleticism. You have the makings to be a great 3-and-D player. So as long as you can kind of just show me flashes of that and be a solid player, like nothing crazy, and just show the growth. For me, I want him to either grow in the 905 or take the Gradey Dick route, you know, and just develop. So for me, with him in the season, I just want him to develop and grow. And what I want to ask you guys first too, I'll go to Zulfi first, like kind of a creative question here, but if you guys were Darko, how would you develop him? Like what type of minutes would you give him? Would you send him to the 905? What type of lineups would you run him in? Like just kind of go all out here.
Like 3 questions in one. That's hard to answer. Like, I guess the way I would treat him, and the Raptors kind of need somebody like this, is I kind of think of like a Gary Trent Jr. type of player, like a guy who can create for himself, be a high volume shooter. He has some of the athletic ability as a defender. Again, Gary at his best was a pesky defender, could get into passing lanes and stuff like that. So I kind of see a similar start for his career. You can see he has maybe more potential than that. Even again, I think the 905 is a great option for him, is because when you go down there, like you are the guy. They're going to give you the ball a ton. You're going to get all the shots you want. You saw it with Gradey Dick last year. So I think that's a way to kind of develop it into that score. But like the Raptors, like even now, I still don't think they comfortably have a guy where they can be like, here's the ball, go get a bucket. You know, Immanuel Quickley might be that guy if he continues to improve in his mid-range game. RJ Barrett, so you saw it last year at times, didn't work out well. I still think back to that game against the Pacers. I think it was Pascal's first game back. RJ Barrett went for the game winner, went for this like fade away from the left side of the elbow. Didn't really work out. So like, and we saw Scottie, like he doesn't necessarily have the dribble package to kind of be there at this point. So the Raptors still need that guy who can kind of just go make a bucket happen. You kind of had that in Gary Trent Jr., but really, did you want Gary Trent Jr. to be that guy for a serious contending team? Probably not. So that's kind of how I would let Jakob Poeltl kind of develop. We've seen it in college at Baylor. He's that guy with the ball in his hands. He can make things happen. And that's what I want to see him be for the Raptors in the long run if everything breaks right for him. But Coty, what do you think? Is that fair, or do you have a different, I guess, like development idea for Jakobi?
No, I generally agree. We'll see how camp goes. I mean, obviously they're going to get a feel for how close he is once things get going here in about a month, maybe a little under a month now. But really, he should be in the rotation. I mean, he's a top 9, depending on how you feel about Ochai. He's the 9th, 10th best guy on this team right now. And it's okay. So out of 23 first round picks in franchise history, how many do you guys think started over 41 games, half a season's worth of games in their rookie year? Just take a and the rookie year started over 41 games. I wrote about this, so I have the number in front of me.
Out of 23,
I'll go under 10.
I was gonna say 11.
7. So 7 out of 23 first round picks in franchise history have started over half a season's worth of games. So I don't think history tells us that. Don't be expecting Jakob Poeltl to be starting games with the Raptors this year. Maybe a couple, maybe a Gradey Dick like strong second half could be there, but It would take some injuries, and that was partly why Gradey Dick was starting games as well. I think he'd be in the rotation, but I also do love him going down to the 905 for a stint or whatever and just tearing it up, especially if it's not going well in the minutes he's going to get in the NBA. I would assume he starts in the NBA and is in the rotation if camp goes well and he's clearly not there, which I don't think is true. I think he's there, but at least to in the Raptors context, be in a rotation.
You know he's not afraid to shoot. You saw him in summer league. That guy was chucking up everything, and they wanted him to be fair. So like, at least he has the aggression, and I think that speaks to both what you're saying and what I'm saying, Coty. He has the mindset and like again that aggressiveness to want to be at the NBA level and score. And I want to personally see him as a top scorer in the league one day in terms of just like an elite guy who can create a bucket for himself. So I think that's fair.
Yeah, he took the most shots and three-pointers with the Baylor Bears last season and with the Raptors summer squad this year. So yeah, not afraid to let the ball fly at all.
I'm just hoping like the fan base, you know, just tempers their expectations a little. Like when it comes to the rookies on our team, I feel like a lot of people kind of want to see like success immediately, but we gotta learn from Gradey and we gotta let these guys grow. I don't want to put too much expectations on them because we don't know what he could grow into. Like I honestly feel like if Jacoby plays or grows to his fullest potential in like the next season or two, he might be able to take that starting spot from Gradey. Honestly, I like his game a little bit better in like a shooting guard position than Gradey. But moving on to the next, you know, new addition to the team, Jonathan Mogbo. I know Zulfi kind of got a point on that. So what are you thinking?
Yeah, the way I see Mogbo's season is interesting because you could very well see him starting the year with the 905, being down there, or even just right up with the Raptors because they're so thin at the front court spot. So I'm not really sure in terms of where he ends up starting the year. I personally think it's probably with the Raptors, again, being thin at the front court spot. But the way I see my expectations for him is that his numbers to me truly don't matter. There's nothing statistical for this season that really matters to me. I think it's impact over everything. When he's out there in his minutes, is he making good decisions? Is he impacting the game in positive ways? And to me, if he can cut into the minutes of a guy like Ochai Agbaji for the 9th spot, in my opinion, or if he's cutting into Kelly Olynyk's minutes and taking some of those minutes away from him to get into thing, I think he's had a successful season. That's really how I see it. And the example I want to go back to is like, I vividly remember when I realized that Pascal Siakam was a guy for this team was his second year in the playoffs against the Wizards. At one point, he was the guy who was basically guarding John Wall point of attack. Like he was showing his versatility. He was like, you need somebody to get a stop out here. I don't care about the offense. I don't care about getting my numbers. I'm here to help you win. I'm going to go out there and do my job. And he did a great job guarding John Wall. Raptors won that series in 6, I believe. And that's when I knew like this guy had put his stamp on this team and he's here to stay. And that's kind of what I want to see from Mogbo. Like, again, numbers don't matter. Make an impact, show you can do a bit of the dirty stuff, and that's going to get you a role on this team, and it'll all grow from there. We know his athletic tools. He's raw offensively in some regard. Guy can't shoot a 3 for his life, but he can move the ball. He can kind of get inside to the rim. So I think that is positive enough to see him on this team. I guess my question for you guys, not the biggest, but one of the concerns is like, it's hard to really pin down like where he's going to play at the 3 or the 4. Some people see him as a small ball 5, but he's 6'6". And in today's NBA, we're trending towards that big man renaissance with guys like Joel Embiid, Giannis, and Nikola Jokic kind of leading the way. Even like Zach Edey in the NBA now, like you're kind of like trying to counter small ball, and big ball is becoming a thing again. Like, is that a concern? How much concern do you have for a guy like Mogbo and not being able to understand what his role is? Coty, where are you on that?
Handle of a guard, size of a forward, and the shooting of a throwback center is the way I like to describe Jonathan Mogbo. One of the most unique players coming out of the entire 2024 class in general. It's going to be interesting to see how they develop him. Like you're mentioning, do they want him to be more of the wing kind of guy, or are they going to develop him more as a 4 or 5? He's too small, unfortunately, to play just the center. Like I think you can rule that out, but are they going to want him more as like a 3-4 or like a 4-5 kind of thing? 7'2" wingspan, fluid mover. So you could see him on the wing. It's just, there's no shot. I mean, there's clips, there's these training camp highlights or just workout highlights, I guess, of him taking jumpers. And he actually did take a couple of jumpers in summer league, the limited time he was out there before taking a hard fall and hurting his back. But it's going to be interesting with Mogbo because if there's like a 12-man rotation, say with Darko, I think he could be in it on day one. I really do. And he's another guy who I think is going to get plenty of time at the 905. Like you mentioned, kind of hard to see like what the exact like split is going to be of how when he's with this, when he's with that. But playing time's probably going to be a priority for him. So 905 would be the route. I think we're going to be seeing a lot of him in Mississauga. So, but I also like the idea of him working with the Raptors up top, and I think he'd be in the rotation right now. So
Yeah, you're right. It's fascinating because he's such a complementary player, at least you see with his skill set. So, like, how much value does he get out of the 905? Like, the guys playing around him are not going to be Scottie Barnes, Immanuel Quickley, or being able to find him in spaces necessarily like that. So, like, there is obviously always value in going that way, getting more opportunity, getting the ball more. But, like, how does that translate to the NBA necessarily? So, that's why I'm so fascinated by, like, does he really make sense for the 905? So, we'll see what it is. But, Kyle, did you have any thoughts on Mogbo beyond that?
Honestly, I agree with you both. Like, I feel like you have to kind of slot him in at the 3-4 position. I feel like if you put him at center, it's too much of a risk, especially with his size. Like, I don't think he should go anywhere near that center spot. Like, I know there's been talks about it, but you got to keep him at the 3-4, especially with his size. And I honestly feel like you just got to put him in the 905. I feel like, yeah, you could give him some minutes on the main roster, but to see him really develop, like for me and the rookies, the 905 will do him good. And like there you could figure out what sort of lineup he fits best into and how to get the most out of his game. You know, the more you see him play there, the more it kind of translate onto the main roster, I should say. But yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts on him.
Yeah, like he honestly, in my opinion, he just missed out on the small ball center era. When you saw what Draymond was doing with those death lineups and stuff, maybe there was a world where you could see Jonathan Mogbo because of the defensive versatility do stuff like that. But like today's NBA, like especially if you get back to a competitive point, it just the centers are too versatile, they're too big, and I don't think it's gonna work out well for him. Even like teams that aren't necessarily as like the Cavs, you have Jared Allen. Like, is he really gonna be able to do much to Jared Allen? Maybe, maybe not. But like, it's just there's just so many more of those traditional centers or like with size that are gonna cause problems. That I think he just missed out on that era to be that small ball center. You never know; things change in the NBA and it's fluid. But we're finally here to the final rookie we're gonna be talking about, and that is Jamal Shead and his number one fan, Coty. No, I'm kidding. Coty, tell us what you think about Jamal and what your expectations are.
A little behind baseball. We have a shared doc where we're all kind of throwing in some notes. I think Zulfi was taking a little peek at Jamal Shead. It is getting a little too. Apparently, I'm just the number one fan, even though I pretty much I wrote about Jamal Shead about a month ago, so I copy and pasted my write up on him. I got another little game for you guys though.
Okay.
So out of the 18 second round picks in franchise history, how many do you think have played just more than 30 games, not started, just played more than 30 games with the big club in total in their rookie seasons?
I'm gonna say 4.
I'll say 6.
Hey, you guys are actually, I thought you guys were gonna be shooting higher. It's only 3. Any guesses?
Second round picks. God damn. What, like,
they're a bit, 2 out of the 3 are
Norm, right?
Recent. Like how recent?
Oh, yeah, I'll just give it to you.
Like Malachi? Was Malachi
Delano Banton, Christian Coloco, and Jimmy King. Back in the day, Jimmy King, one of the first second round picks in franchise history. All this to say, I really think the only reason I would make the case for him to be in the NBA is because he has an NBA ready skill right now. The point of attack defense is NBA ready, good to go. Let's get it. The toughness, the leadership, the defense oozed out of the screen when you're watching this guy down in Vegas. I think leading that 905 team next year is going to be fantastic for him. I really think that's what's going to be done. I would love to see that. I just wouldn't rule NBA games out of the question for him, especially with like the guard play not being the best and just knowing Jamal Shead since I've got to learn from him. Going around the draft, did you guys not see him picking up trash? That clip that was going around. Oh,
he's a really cool dude.
Yeah. Love it. He just seems like he's going to be a fantastic pro in general. He's going to stick long term. I don't know if it's with the Raptors, but he's going to be an NBA player. It's just interesting that the comp coming out was Davion Mitchell to some degree. Yeah. So one Naismith Defensive Player of the Year I think it's the outside shot is big for him. He didn't shoot over 31% at any point during college and was only barely over 27% in Las Vegas. That's going to be the key for him. If he can shoot it, because I feel like is more of a point guard than Davion is at this point, just with their style of plays. So, but if Shead can shoot it, then we're talking about an actual locked in rotation player. But we got to see, and that's where I think 905 leading them, continuing to get shots up and reps up, will be the right choice.
I think the 905 makes a ton of sense for him. He's going to have the opportunity. JFL's gone. Omari's gone. Marquise Noel is gone. He's going to get the range. He's going to run the same system. And I think that is very valuable for him. You're right. If he gets that 3-point shot, it changes everything. I think realistically, if he can do that consistently while being the impact defender that he is, I think that's going to make a huge difference to this conversation. And I would be very willing to say that this is going to be a quote unquote battle or competition between him and Davion Mitchell at that point. Because like 27% around in Vegas and 31 in college isn't great. Can he improve? But it's also a college 3-point line. It's slightly bit closer. So that's even more of a reason to be like, well, can he actually get it to the NBA level? That matters. So we'll see what happens with that. But I do agree with you. His character is off the charts. Leadership is there. You love to see that. You saw that video, like you mentioned, of him picking up trash. Another thing is, I think he's one of the first guys with this Raptors team to, like, outside of PJ Tucker, to be like a real sneakerhead. He has a deal with, I can't remember what it is, but he's going to get like sneakers provided this season. So like, hey, if he's at the NBA level, he should be getting his fits off. His sneaker game should be on like cloud 9. So I'm excited for that as a guy who likes shoes. I'm sure a lot of us like that part of the culture as well. We had a really fashionable guy in Gary Trent Jr., but now he's gone. So maybe Jamal Shead can kind of take that mantle as well. Who knows? But I think that is pretty much all the players we want to talk about when it comes to roster expectations. I don't know if anybody here has Bruno Fernando takes or the camp guys they brought in or anything like that. But overall, like, I guess we can give our closing thoughts on this roster. We don't have to throw out win projections or anything. Feel free if you want to, but I'm not going to throw out the dreaded phrase from last season where it's wins and lessons, even though I just did. I don't think we're at that point where we have to automatically see it that way. We have to see how these games go first, but I do think development is priority number one still. Winning is great. It's good. You strive for it. You aim for it, especially with Jakob Poeltl healthy. I think he changes a lot of that. Obviously, Scottie Barnes too. But I think with a full roster, development should still be priority. Try things, be experimental. Don't be conservative just because you want to win an extra game and get into the play-in, which is to say, to your guys' point, like Coty, let Jamal Shead get some minutes. See what Jacoby can do when Kyle mentioned that he can be a guy who can maybe spot in for Gradey Dick at some point, like Gradey Dick start, yada, yada. So that's kind of where I'm at in terms of expectation. Development number one, but winning should still be some kind of like, I guess, sub point. Coty, where are you at?
I completely agree. There's no, like, yes, it's a good 2025 class, but for them to be a top pick, there has to be a bad team, which means the players aren't playing well and they aren't playing well together. If the Raptors are going to be in purgatory, but the players are playing well to some degree, it's fine. It really is. It's just where this team is too talented to be like bottom of the league. Like, they're nowhere near the bottom feeders. So maybe there's some lottery luck, but they're playing well and they make a playoff push, or a play-in push, I should say, and they're in the play-in. Okay, I don't get what would be so bad about that, really. Even though like a top pick would suit them. Keep an eye on Brandon Carlson, though. He's just somebody I wanted to just stamp a little bit. That I think he's a bit older.
Point, yeah.
He's a bit older, 25, but talk about a guy who can shoot, can protect the rim. We were talking about that archetype. He kind of fits that archetype. Missed 2 years of basketball. So in the middle of that, that's why he's coming out so old. He's somebody that one injury to Kelly or to Jakob or something, and he's up there playing. So just keep an eye on him. We didn't mention over the Shangshai. Seems like he's gonna be a couple years away. We'll constantly be talking about him on this podcast, though, because of course we all do the 905 game. So, but yeah, Bruno Fernando could also be an option for this team if he makes it. Catch some lobs, which is something the Raps have not had at the center position. They're working through their big man, but that's where I'll leave it. We don't need to go too much into these guys.
Yeah,
for sure.
I'm just excited just to see the team play, just to see like a fully healthy Raptors team, the new additions. Like, I might go on a whim and say I'm predicting 52 wins. I'm saying 52 wins right here. Something crazy. 52
You're
wins.
not in charge of betting segments anymore, by the way. Like after that, Coty, you and me can handle. You did
got-
stuff with betting too, Coty.
You gotta shoot high, you know, you gotta shoot high. No, real talk.
Throw away your
So,
money is what you're doing.
real talk. So I can see this team being anywhere from a 6 to 8 kind of playoff team, fully healthy, you know, if they play really well. And I think that's kind of their peak for this season, at least, if they play as well as I think they can. And you know, just going forward, like I feel like the fan base shouldn't put too much expectations on this team. Just expect them trial and error to learn a lot this season. This team's going to be learning a lot, and don't expect a deep playoff run, at least, or even a playoff run at any.
I think that's fair. I think these are realistic expectations to have for the players, for the rosters. The last thing I'll say is I know the tanking conversation is going to probably come up at some point, depending on how things go. We can have that conversation when it happens. All I'll say is ask the Detroit Pistons and ask the Atlanta Hawks what happens when you try to control your luck. It doesn't work. You can't control luck and probability. It's literally what it is. The Pistons have had the 5th pick more times than I can count, even though they've been the worst team in the league. The Atlanta Hawks were in the play-ins, and they just got the 1st overall pick. Play basketball, see what happens. Maybe the basketball gods shine on you, maybe they don't. But I think that is a good spot to wrap it up. As always, I'm Zulfi Sheikh, joined by Coty Wiles and Kyle Ramnarine on the Raptors Republic Network. This is Run It Back. Check out our work on YouTube, on the Raptors Republic website, raptorsrepublic.com. If you have any thoughts, feedback, let us know, especially with these players. Do you think we were way off? Do you think Jamal Shead Defensive Player of the Year, like Coty Wiles is saying? Do you think Jonathan Mogbo should be in this rotation in Ochai spot right away? Is Bruce Brown destined to be traded? Or do you think he's here to stay for good? Let us know what your thoughts are. We love hearing the feedback. But for now, that is it. We're very close, 2 weeks away from preseason, and we should be back soon enough covering the Raptors weekly and giving you your recap. But until then, stay blessed. Have a good day.